Oh, well, it's February and we're going to try sowing everybody's favourite Brussels sprouts. So these veg that comes out every Christmas, I actually like them, and some of them newer varieties are quite sweet. They haven't got that real sort of strong Brussels sprouty flavour, which puts some people off. This variety called Maximus, it's an F1 variety. Say nice sweet sprouts. Does tend to a lot of the F1 varieties do tend to crop all at the same time, so you'll need a freezer or friends who also like Brussels sprouts to give them to. But it's a good disease resistant one to try. Lots of others in the shops. You can sow sprouts from February, so if you know, you've been through Christmas and the New Year and you're itching to sow something, this is one of the first things you can sow, and it does need a long growing season, so you won't be harvesting these until October through to sort of December, depending on the variety. Some varieties will go right the way through the winter and you can still be harvesting them in January. They do take a long time to grow, so you do need a bit of space for these, not something for a pot or a container. So sowing, can start them off because we're sowing early in the year, February. It's too cold to put them outside, ground's still too cold and they'll just sit there, and if you get lots of rain they may even rot. So unless I'm sowing sort of April time, in which case straight into the ground, I tend to sow in containers to start them off, and that's got the added advantage of course of keeping them away from the pests, because you know everything loves cabbage family things like Brussels sprouts, so birds and slugs and snails and and sowing in containers just gets them through the early stages until they're big enough to survive all that. Any kind of container, we've got a recycled food container, drill a few holes in the bottom, perfectly right for sowing seeds. Of course the ordinary seed trays, and probably with these sorts of things, unless you really love sprouts and you want hundreds of plants, you only really need to sow a few, so just a quarter size seed tray there, or a pot, all these sorts of things. You can sow them into cell trays of course if you don't want to have to brick them out, move them on after when they've germinated. But because I only ever grow a few, just a taster for around Christmas time, I just sow a few plants in an ordinary pot. And it's good to recycle your plant pots as well. I don't think I've bought a plant pot for years now. So you get one every time you buy one from the garden centre, and you can just recycle them. So just loosely fill in with compost, give it a tap. Don't want to firm it down too much. Just make sure the top's nice and level. And then your seeds. And these are F1 hybrids, so they're quite expensive. This was sort of £3 for this packet, which made me wince a little bit. But if you get the open pollinated types, the old-fashioned types, they are a lot cheaper. And these ones, I hadn't realised when I bought them, but they're a strange pink colour, and these have been treated with fungicide to help germination and keep them healthy in the early stages. So if you don't like using chemicals, obviously check the packet, but it is quite unusual for them to be treated. And then just sow them thinly on the top. There we go, it's probably about 25, 30 seeds there, which is more than enough actually. If they all germinate and being F1 hybrids, they should. And then just a little bit of compost. You could put vermiculite on top if you wanted to, or perlite. Just cover them very lightly. Because you're sowing early in the season, we'll need a little bit of heat. So it's just a little bit in a heated propagator, probably about 15, which is about 60 in old money. They'll take about 7 to 10 days to germinate. Now obviously if you're sowing a little bit later, so you're sowing March, April time, that much warmer, but you don't really need to give them any heat at all. They're very hardy. And as I say, by April you can be sowing them straight outside. And what I'll do is once they germinate, as I say, about 7 to 10 days, I'll prick them out as soon as the little seed leaves open. And this packet's quite handy actually, because it's got a picture of the seedling on it to show you what they look like. So if they're outside, if they get mixed up with weeds, you'll know which are weeds and which are Brussels. But once they come up and the seed leaves open, I'll be moving them on into cell trays like this and letting them grow on a little bit. Then keep them inside, no heat once they're through. They can just sit inside, preferably in a frost-free polytunnel, something like this. Grow them on until they're about 6 inches high, then I'll harden them off. That's just acclimatise them to the temperatures outside for about a week, just moving them outside during the day, bringing them in again at night, eventually leaving them out after about a week, and then they'll be ready for planting. So once they're about 6 inches high, they can go out and they'll be perfectly hardy then, bone hardy, and they'll grow away right the way through the year, and hopefully we'll have some sprouts for next Christmas.